Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast of the U.S. on August 29, 2005, profoundly changing the landscape and the lives of the residents from New Orleans to Pascagoula forever. Thousands dead or still unaccounted for. Hundreds of thousands left homeless or displaced. Entire communities completely wiped out. But just as the story of loss is overwhelming, so is the story of hope. For out of this catastrophe came an outpouring of love this country hasn't seen in modern times. People felt moved to respond with relief in some form or another. So all across the Gulf region, areas were set up in Katrina's aftermath to help distribute help for victims, support for first responders, and organize volunteers. This is one of those stories that happened by God's grace in Long Beach, Mississippi, at a place called Camp Coast Care.
Well, Katrina hit, and in Long Beach, Mississippi, which is where we are right now, one of the few buildings that was still standing, had a roof, and was dry, was Coast Episcopal School. What do you say, a mile off the beach? And people just came there, spent the night, slept on the floors, just were surviving through the storm, the night of Katrina. And the next day, they woke up, and this 18-wheeler from Canada showed up, and he didn't know where he was going. He just knew he was coming down with supplies, food, water, medical supplies, and the people who were living there at the school pitched in and unloaded all the supplies. You know, survived on those supplies, but then somehow the word just trickled out into the community that we had some stuff, and people started coming. People down here organized a way to give the things away, and people would drive. We even had a drive-through. People could drive through and pick up what they needed weeks after the storm. And now it evolved so that we became the volunteer housing business, and so from the beginning we housed about 150 volunteers every single night.
I've been to Camp Coast Care. This is my fourth trip. The first trip was in October, not too long after the storm, and we did what's called demucking, which is trying to help people get access to their property, cleaning debris and limbs and the mud and all the destruction that the storm brought, so that they could, if they had a house left, get back into their house, or if they didn't have the house, they could have access to the lot where the house once stood. And that was hard work, but from the very beginning you could see people really appreciated what you were doing, and you also began to understand yourself, both intellectually and emotionally and spiritually, the nature of the destruction. The amazing thing about Camp Coast Care to me is that there are volunteers who have been here from day one from all over the country, and many people stayed 3 and 4 months, which was just absolutely amazing. You know, it's interesting to see how people come together to work as a team in spite of regional differences and all kinds of economic differences. You have the type A people, and some of us are not so quite type A, but the interesting thing is that the job's getting done. People are making progress, although it's going to take many years, possibly 10 years, before we fully recover anywhere like it was before Katrina.
I had watched Katrina unfold. I remember sitting watching the Weather Channel that morning and seeing that storm over the area, but it didn't move very fast, and I said, those people are in for a rough time. But I was trying to work out my schedule. I didn't know what to expect. I was making calls, and what is it going to be like? And then I wondered, well, since it's been 6 or 7 weeks after the actual storm, would there be any work to do, or would it be all cleaned up? And I remember calling and talking to Diane Livingston and saying, I don't want to come down if they're just going to meet me at the door and say, oh, we're all done with this. She said, oh, I don't think you'll find that down here. And I realized I was going to come alone and not with a group, but I just had to do it. Just sort of say, well, I'm diving in. You didn't have to even walk 10 steps before somebody would buttonhole you and say, we really need help with this and we need help with that. It was very exciting. There were deliveries going on. There were people telling stories. The lines would form in the morning before anybody would start, and they'd be out the parking lot, down the street, of quiet people just not speaking, just lined up. I'm sorry, just thinking about it gets lined up down the street with this look. It dawned on me that they're probably in shock. That what I had thought it was some distance from the event was still very fresh in their minds. The fellow we were looking for, he seemed pretty well off. His house was nothing but a mass of rubble. It's like a large field, just well, like a regular house lot, but under about 6 feet of rubble. And he wanted us. He had asked the church to come down and help him. He says, "I'm really looking for my wife's wedding ring that I bought in Rio, but she lost it." We just looked at this mountain of pulverized house, which he said wasn't even his stuff. And we're just amazed that he was going to look through this. He said he'd come out every day, pick through the stuff. He just needed help. If somebody could just help him. Well, since we were at the point at that time of planting seeds and not discriminating who gets help and who doesn't help, we helped. In fact, I had trouble accepting it after a while. I said, we're looking through this hour after hour, digging through this stuff, and he's running back and forth. Did you find something? Did you find? He's digging too and sifting. I said, how come this guy deserves? I thought I was going to come down here and help people who are just stranded out in the middle of nowhere. But Joe Robinson at the time would give us a talk about not here to judge. We're here to plant seeds of hope. If it happens to be somebody in one house when nobody else is there and all the houses are gone, that may be the seed of hope that will inspire somebody, and maybe people in that neighborhood, to come back, to rebuild. But this guy wanted to find this ring, and he had called the crews down several times. He kept, and one last time he asked for just a favor, please. He would come to camp and buttonhole a couple people and said, can you just send out one more crew one more time? They did. They sent a crew one more time. It was just about ready to get dark, and they found the ring. That's the amazing thing about it. He said a volunteer was throwing a pile of rubble up on a wheelbarrow, and there must have been hundreds of wheelbarrows of junk. I mean, pulverized house. And it rolled up into his boot, and he was going to throw it over his shoulder, just a little tin rusty box, and decided at the last minute to open it. And he found the ring. He said, here he's coming to a church group, and he's talking to the church, the Episcopal people, he called them, and he finds this ring, and we've been praying about this and thinking and talking, and does this guy really need help? And I said, wow, what did you must have been surprised. He said, well, it was amazing. Just kind of matter-of-factly. And they said they left the site. He basically just kept digging, looking for stuff.